You know, I think it's time that we come to terms with the fact that Star Wars is dying. Hi y'all, Snarky J Cosplay here. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I kind of didn't want to make this video because I know that people tend to think these things are a little doom and gloom, but honestly, I make them more out of analysis sake and to kind of see if everybody else is seeing the same trends that I'm seeing. So as of the time of this video's recording, we are basically coming right out of Star Wars Celebration 2023, and there were a lot of big announcements. Sure, there was some great stuff in the Ahsoka trailer, which I personally have avoided. I'm one of those reviewers that doesn't like to go into things with expectations, but what really got me thinking were the plans for new movies. For one, they're claiming that they want to wrap up the story of The Mandalorian with a film, which to me just feels like a money grab and a half. And even worse than that, they're planning on bringing back Rey for yet another Star Wars movie. And to me, the new trilogy is worth hating, not even just because it was the new trilogy, but the new trilogy was obviously such a clear picture of the direction that Disney was taking a franchise that we've loved since the 70s. I haven't been around since the 70s, but Star Wars has, and that's where I'm getting at here. Episode 7 basically had the same kind of energy as, hey, can I copy your homework? Sure, but just change it a little bit so we don't get in trouble. That is basically what episode 7 was to episode 4. A complete copy and paste with, let's face it, none of the charm. And then they basically spent the entire sequel trilogy killing off the original characters that we fell in love with in order to make room for the new disasters that they were putting on all the lunchboxes today. And honestly, having watched The Force Awakens when I was like 15, I was willing to give these characters a chance. But Rey had no personality, Poe was Han Solo with a little more sazon, and Oscar Isaac gets a pass because he is half Cuban, so he's mi gente. But Finn, who had tremendous potential as a maybe Force-sensitive ex-stormtrooper, was reduced to just screaming out Rey for the next 2 movies, and despite Disney's constant badgering that we should all push for diversity, they were completely willing to cut him off and make him really tiny on the posters that were released in China because they were unwilling to accept posters with an African-American main character. Not only did that move show a complete lack of respect for John Boyega, but it also showed that Disney doesn't even believe in their own pushes for diversity, which we've all been calling for years, and Disney is basically just putting up a facade when they're really willing to do anything and everything just to make a quick buck. If that isn't proof of what a complete sellout Disney is, I don't know what is. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that Star Wars has always been this work of art made out of love. Sure, George Lucas was extremely passionate about this project, and so are all of us, but at the end of the day, I mean, there's Ewoks in Return of the Jedi for the sole purpose of selling creepy little teddy bears, and as somebody who has a degree in marketing, Star Wars is actually used as one of those films that had one of the biggest marketing campaigns and biggest toy, lunchbox, food, anything you can imagine basically got tied into Star Wars for years. So Star Wars has basically always been a money-making machine. But despite that fact, there was always love and truth behind it. There was always a real script, and maybe George Lucas wrote terrible dialogue that pretty much everybody in the prequels and originals hated having to read. I can acknowledge that. But the fact of the matter is that there was passion behind these other movies, and I just don't see that anymore with these new ones. And that is my main problem with the future projects coming out. For instance, I, as well as so many other people, really thought that The Mandalorian was going to be the one shining light of Disney. And yet, after 2 really solid seasons where it felt like a story had truly been told and an effect had been had, they went ahead and basically retconned everything that happened in the prior 2 seasons to continue milking the cash cow that is The Mandalorian. The 3rd season of The Mandalorian, though it isn't over yet, has basically felt an awful lot like the sequel trilogy. A toy commercial with no real plan made to just sort of jerk along people who were really into the franchise and continue to bring in people that really don't give a shit about Star Wars either way. Star Wars almost seems to be building an MCU sort of thing all surrounding The Mandalorian. And what I mean by that is this. The Mandalorian ended up attracting a whole group of people that never liked Star Wars but ended up getting interested in the guy in the silver helmet played by Pedro Pascal, and their kids really liked the green baby. And so what happens? They made a spin-off in the book of Boba Fett. You couldn't watch the book of of Boba Fett without having seen The Mandalorian. And if you plan to jump back into The Mandalorian for season 3, you couldn't do so without having seen the Book of Boba Fett, because 2 whole episodes out of that series were dedicated to developing the story of The Mandalorian. You're really not gonna understand Ahsoka if you didn't watch The Mandalorian. You see where I'm going with this? Sure, it might seem like they're trying to build up a new breed of Star Wars fan, but really they're just connecting everything in a weird way that just sells product. It sells product, and it's kind of opening the doors to new fans, which I like, but it's doing it in the wrong way. Instead of creating meaningful stories that could really appeal to everybody, like I think was accomplished in the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy to a certain extent, I think all they're doing is throwing t-shirt fodder into the wind, making Twitter drama, and inviting random people onto the sets of Star Wars in hopes that their fans will come and watch. And I know for a fact, I can hear you guys already, the fanboys in the comments crying about, you should be happy we're getting this, you should be glad, you should be grateful. You know what? No, I'm not grateful. I'm not going to be grateful about a group of millionaires sitting in a room focus grouping that's gonna make money. I'm grateful when my abuela spends all day tending a garden and still comes in to make me spaghetti. That's what I'm grateful for. I'm not grateful when Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni walk out of their mansions and drive over to an office to figure out which Grogu action figure we need next. I'm paying my Disney Plus membership. They don't pay my bills. They don't sponsor me. I have zero reason to have to be grateful that they gave me anything at all, because they didn't give us anything. We paid for it. We bought the merchandise. We paid for the subscription. We bought the movie tickets. This is for them to make money in the guise of being for us. If it was for us, they would have real people listening to videos like this one, maybe ones where people whine less, but I rest my case. They would be listening to the fans. Everybody f***ing hated Rey and the new trilogy, and what do? They double down. They're bringing Daisy Ridley back, which it's not the actress's fault, but they're bringing her back, bringing in this lackluster character that nobody really identified with to make another movie for what? It's not for us. That's the sad reality of what Star Wars has become. It's all a factory. And again, I can acknowledge that that's kind of what it's always been, but this is basically just gross. It's kind of laughing in the faces of dedicated fans who have adored the franchise for years. Being completely honest, doing reviews and commentary is in fact my job. This is what I do. I sit in this room and I make videos and I talk at the camera and I hope that somebody out there is gonna go ahead and click. So truthfully, I will watch these things. Even though I sit here and complain and all that, I have to watch them because it's my job. I want to talk about them, and I want to talk about them with you guys. So at the end of the day, yeah, is Disney gonna keep getting my money despite all the bitching I do about them right here on this channel? Yeah, they're gonna keep getting my money. But I'll tell you what, I'm not happy about it, because if I didn't have to watch most of it, I probably wouldn't. If I didn't have to review it, I would have stopped watching The Mandalorian after the 3rd episode. And I definitely wouldn't be caught dead buying tickets to any of their upcoming projects, because let's face it, that slate belongs frozen in carbonite and hung up on a wall. That's all from me. I've been Snarky J. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on the future of Star Wars in the comments below.